So my name is Paul Harvey and this is a Market That recording, so welcome. Today I am speaking to Christina Evans. Now I met Christina through LinkedIn and it's been an interesting journey watching my kind of awareness of Christina come up, and I've seen her posts pass in the newsfeed. And so I reached out to Christina and asked if I could talk to her, so she's agreed to have a conversation with us this evening. So let me tell you a bit more about Christina. Christina is the director of the HR and recruiting for Extractor. It's a high-tech company based in the greater Philadelphia area that offers a comprehensive sales tax software suite for businesses. And Christina is highly passionate about driving proactive and creative and thinking outside of the box for recruitment strategies. And outside work, she enjoys writing. And you can often find Christina spending time with family or more often training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. This is the bio I'm reading, and it's quite an interesting bio. There'll be some questions out of this, I'm sure. But what really attracted me to Christina is her prolific writing. So Christina has only really actually engaged in LinkedIn for a few months. So let's introduce Christina and see what happens. So welcome, Christina. Thanks for taking some time out to speak to me today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you inviting me to. I'm excited.
So tell me a little bit about your writing, because that's obviously what's attracted me. And you seem to be a really prolific writer. I looked before we had our conversation. I looked on LinkedIn, and you've got 50 posts up on LinkedIn. And how long has that taken you to do?
Oh, geez. Well, I've actively been on LinkedIn for at least 4 years. But like you said in the introduction there, I've really been super active for the last few months. So the 51 posts that I have up, I did that within the last 2.5 to 3 months.
Wow. So you obviously really enjoy writing. Is it something you do every day?
I do. It's actually very therapeutic, and it's amazing how something you enjoy so much can translate to other people. So it's not a chore for me to write. It's something I enjoy quite a bit.
So how do you pick your subjects? That's what attracted me to me too, because you're a HR professional. But what I notice is your writing is quite varied in your posts. I mean, do you always bring them back into a work perspective?
Not necessarily. I think most of my posts, if not all of them, really strive to tie things back to professional or personal motivation. In the beginning of my writing publicly on LinkedIn, I started out with more of the musical inspiration and how I could take musical lyrics from everyday songs and take them out of their context and turn them into something completely different. To motivate other people. And then I started, getting a little bit more confident in what I was putting out there and started writing more about some of the pain points I've seen, both, on the internal side for recruiting and also on the candidate side or the job seeker side. So I've really enjoyed putting out content that kind of relates to what people are struggling with in the market now. So
is this something that you do actively for your work, through your work? I mean, what's the relationship between your writing and the day job, for want of a better word?
Well, obviously, I represent my organization in many of the activities that I do. There's definitely no correlation in the sense that my work is paying me to write or incentivizing me to write. But I am very much conscious of the fact that I am, also representing my organization, and they're very supportive in my endeavors. So they're aware of what I'm putting out there. They're aware of what I'm doing, and they're very supportive of it.
Well, let's put this into some figures, and we'll get more into kind of how it all happened. But what I think is amazing is, I saw a couple of posts of yours. I think it was actually a short form post that attracted my attention. It was a short form post you'd written about. It shows a cartoon of a person on a street corner. It says, "Since you're a person I trust and wanting to invite you to join my LinkedIn network." It's just someone randomly walking by each other, and I know exactly what you mean in terms of you see people and they kind of ask you to become their best friend, and next thing you know they're selling you something. So it's that kind of. I understand why that post attracted so much attention, but it did. It got 1,925 likes and 379 comments. That's pretty good going.
Yeah, and you know what? It's funny because there's really no magical formula for what's going to create engagement. But I think when you put something out there that hits some sort of emotional nerve, whether it's positive or negative,
Yes.
you're going to see a debate. And it's interesting to sit back and watch, especially as someone who unintentionally created a very healthy debate on a topic, of interest to people. So it's definitely interesting to sit back and watch that.
Any idea? I mean, do you think that post was the leverage point that's really shifted everything, or do you think it was before then? Because I notice some of your writing has got a lot of comments and some of it hasn't. But there's they're all around the few hundred, I think. But what I've noticed is since that one came out, you must have got a lot of context. I mean, that's what I said. That's how we connected, wasn't it? Because you were talking about you were getting so many people hitting on you at the time after writing that post. And I said, but
yeah,
at least it gives you some good choice.
Yeah, no, actually the short form post that really hit it off was my short form post about LinkedIn not being Match.com. And that's the one that really hit things off. The post about, personalizing connection requests kind of came after the fact. And that post, unfortunately, keeps getting removed by LinkedIn, and still I have really no idea why.
Which one?
But the LinkedIn versus Match.com post.
Okay.
I believe you commented on it a couple of days ago. But the post itself has had well over 11,000 likes, well over, 2,000 comments, and it's still going a month and a half later. So it's interesting to sit back and watch that as well. It
is. It certainly is interesting to see what catches the imagination. But I was looking, I was looking at the stats you gave me, and I just thought it was amazing. I think this was a couple of weeks ago when we talked, and you said you started on the 3rd of March, so it's been 2 months. So you published 40 articles. You had 2 which you would consider went viral. One brought you over 1,000 likes and approximately 200 comments. The other was bringing you 8,000 likes and over 2,000 comments. And before that process, you were getting 100 profile views a day, and now you're getting an average of, is that 5,000 plus profiles a week?
That's correct. I'm at least hitting between 500 to 1,000 per day, depending on just the volume and kind of, what's catching fire that day. But on average, yes, 5,000 a week.
Does that mean that LinkedIn's becoming a very active part of your day now then?
I would say it definitely takes up time because I don't want to miss things, and I'm trying to stay actively engaged because, in my opinion, digital footprint is everything nowadays. So I do take the time to engage, but I do scale back. I'm not always on there, but I try to, respond to comments. I try to respond to people so that it keeps things going.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think has happened? What's happened to your professional life or since this newfound fame has come to you? I mean, I'm sorry, I'm being a bit tongue-in-cheek, but, you are getting some notoriety in terms of that.
I'm really humble to that fact, and I think if anything, this whole, last couple of months or last few months have really opened my eyes to finding myself even more and just being more confident in the fact that I'm not like a typical HR professional. I'm not like a typical recruiter. I'm not a typical person, and I'm okay with owning that. So I think just the whole thing's been a huge learning experience. But as far as my professional life, I think it's enhanced it. I mean, I have more candidates coming at me than I had to try to seek out before. So I think it's up to my credibility. It's up to my talent pool.
Wow.
It's done a lot of things. Absolutely.
So I guess your company's obviously benefiting from the fact that you're getting the right candidates turning up for your role.
Absolutely. Especially when it's a hard to fill position.
That's really interesting. So how do you link the two? Because I mean, I'm not quite sure what your day role is. So excuse me, I didn't actually follow that up too much. Can you explain a little bit more how the two fit together?
Yeah. So I mean, most of my job is, I would say, probably about 60 to 70% recruitment focused. Most of our positions, since we are a high technology company, fall into the software development or, technology realm. And there's a pretty low unemployment rate in that industry in general. So it can be very difficult to tap into the right candidates. They're getting between 100 to 150 emails a day from recruiters all over, wanting to tap into them if they're, hot in the industry. So just from my content and just from upping my digital footprint, a lot of those candidates that probably wouldn't have responded to my emails, or my calls a couple of months ago are now looking me up on LinkedIn and saying, hey, okay, she looks really interesting. I want to connect with her. And it's started some conversations I honestly don't think I would have had an opportunity to have.
No, I think that's what happened, and it's certainly amazing. It certainly is amazing that sort of stuff starts to come about. So, what's the future for you and your writing? Is this? Do you think you're going to take it into a new realm? Have you considered writing a book?
Possibilities are endless. I'm a very open-minded person, and I'm all about going in the direction of positivity. And I feel like I'm going in the right direction, and what that adds up to is, to be determined. What I can tell you is that today is an awesome day to do a podcast because I actually had something really awesome happen today. I had my first article published on recruiter.com. So I'm starting to branch out to writing, freelance, contributing to other arenas and other reputable, sites. And that in itself, I would love to continue, upping my writing portion of my career,
so
however that might.
You'll have to forgive my ignorance, but I mean, is recruiter.com kind of the Forbes of is that it? Is it the kind of the place to be in the recruiting world?
I mean, it's definitely something that recruiters know about. It's a resource for recruiters. It has a full gamut of, recruiting resources for people, including a Recruiting Today magazine, which is where my article was published. So that was a huge step for me. That was a huge piece of, the puzzle of continuing to up my credibility in my industry.
Yes, and of course, all of this kind of stuff is about authority. And any writing, any kind of thing, and it's about authority and credibility, as you say, and it puts being out in the world there gives you that level of authority. And I guess even if there was someone in the industry who really wanted to reach out to someone in the HR industry, you could probably reach out to them and have an interesting conversation. Where prior to this process, you probably wouldn't have been so easy. So it's quite fascinating to watch that kind of opportunity come about. Writing opens doors in that respect.
Absolutely, and that's the best way you could have said it. It really is writing open doors and writing opportunities. And you're right, there are people who I've respected as writers in recruiting specific industry that now, guess what? I have leverage to reach out to, and I've been able to do that a couple of times already, to reach out to people that I may not have known where to start before, and now I feel like I have a little bit more leverage.
So let's try and let's step back in time a bit, or kind of look at how could we help someone new coming into this. So I'm someone listening to this broadcasting. So, wow, maybe I could do that for my industry. How does someone start?
You can absolutely do it. I've always been what I like to call a closet writer. I've written all of my life, but I've never ever written publicly, and hitting publish can be a very anxious moment for people, and it definitely was for me on my first post. I wasn't sure how it was going to be received. I've never had to engage with people talking about what I'm writing and what if they don't like it, and I think it's really about being vulnerable. Knowing obviously what direction you want to take your content, but don't be afraid to publish. Don't overthink it. The worst thing that can happen is it fluffs and you learn from it and you move on and you write something bigger and better.
I think also for people starting out, in some ways, because they're not going to get seen by that many people anyway when they first start out, your first publications can be a bit challenged, or whatever want to use the word for it. I know some people that use more colourful metaphors when they're describing their early work. But it can be crap, for want of a better word, and no one will see it because it'll just disappear in the timeline. But I notice one thing it does get me is that clearly, while writing is incredibly important, they don't teach people to write very well in any education system. Grammatically and all those kind of things. What do you do for that? Do you use some kind of tools, or are you just someone that knows what they're doing?
When I first went to college, my associates was in rhetoric and writing. So I feel like I've always been really proficient with English subject matter and writing, and it's always come easy to me. And I don't say that to toot my own horn, but I'm finishing up grad school now, and I have to write 15-page papers, and I can do that on a Saturday in 2 hours and still get an A on it. So for me, writing just comes easy to me. The grammatics come easy to me, but I also don't believe in perfection with writing nowadays. I think it's okay to have slight imperfections. It doesn't all have to be perfect. I don't mean misspelling is okay, or, improper use of grammatics is okay, but it's okay not to completely flow. It's okay to write the way that you would talk to someone. I think that's part of finding your authentic voice.
Mm-hmm. That's certainly true on websites, I think, in terms of blogging. That's certainly true in terms of finding a voice. I don't know, LinkedIn's a different kind of environment for me. It's kind of, being such a professional environment, I guess there's an expectation of a professional kind of presentation. And you're talking to someone who is slightly dyslexic, so I'm quite in awe of people who can write so well.
Yeah, and I think you're right with the LinkedIn platform. I think it's important to come across as strong in whatever you're putting out there. You don't want to look silly or make yourself look uneducated, for lack of a better word. Mm-hmm. You want to come across as a professional, absolutely.
So how about finding subject matter for someone starting new out into this world of publishing on LinkedIn, or writing generally, really, if let's look at it from the perspective of achieving what you've achieved, getting some kind of authority or notoriety within the LinkedIn space. Would you suggest someone choose a subject matter? Because you chose song lyrics.
Yeah, I would take musical lyrics that really don't mean what they mean in terms of my writing, and I would take them from a song, and make them into something completely different that motivates people personally and professionally. So that was interesting, and I think it was more of a challenge for me. How can I take musical lyrics that definitely don't mean anything professional or personal and make them that way? That was exciting.
Mm-hmm. So out of all the posts that you've done, is there one that's your favorite? Do you have a favorite?
Ooh. I like them all, but I think that's just because feel like I have ownership of them, obviously. Of course, there are articles that I've written where I thought it was amazing, and then, like you said, the viewership is not there, which is fine. It just happens, right? But I would say, the one that I like the most is probably my newest project, which is Transitioning Veteran of the Week. So I've been highlighting a military veteran every week and trying to provide them visibility through a post.
Do you have connection with the military?
I do. I was in the Air Force for 4 years. I was a medic.
So that's I had noticed there's quite a lot of veteran kind of stuff around your post. So I had wondered what the connection was. So, is there anything else you think that I haven't asked you that I should have done? Awful question, isn't it?
It is an awful question.
But no,
I
guess what I'm getting at is, I know it's an awful question, but what I'm getting at, is there anything that you think I've missed that you should be saying, really, or you want to say to people in terms of that, in terms of how writing has changed your life, really, or whatever?
I think for anyone who's listening who, wants to not live a boring life. I know that sounds horrible, but if you're tired of mediocrity, or if you're tired of just kind of doing the day-to-day grind, you have to have a strong digital footprint. We're in the information age, and nowadays, people are looking you up. They're Googling your name. They're, looking you up on LinkedIn, they're looking you up on Twitter, on Facebook, and they're seeing what kind of presence you have. And I really think that it's important to embrace that and to put the time and energy into making sure that you're establishing a consistent, branding of yourself on digital media. So I think that it's just important for people to be vulnerable. Don't be afraid of negativity. Embrace it. Those people don't matter anyway in the grand scheme of things. And hit publish. Just do it,
That's good words, I think. Very good words. And I think one thing you said is about consistency, which I think is very important. And it's one thing I notice in my own writing. I'm not as consistent as I need to be. I often get caught up in client work myself, and rather than doing my own stuff. But it's good to hear it from you. And I guess consistency is what built your brand, because that's what got you where you are today, because of the 50 odd posts. Do you post twice a week now? Is it?
I'm typically posting at least 4 times per week, but now that I'm contributing, freelance original content, I probably will minimize that on the LinkedIn platform. At least it's probably 2 to 3 posts per week, because it's a lot, But another thing with the consistency that I wanted to point out that you kind of triggered in my mind is when you decide to make a commitment to start writing publicly, please be aware that you set your own pace. So the fact that I was so gung-ho and decided to, post on a daily basis, now I'm not saying I'm forced to keep up with that, but I feel almost an obligation to continue that consistency. So if you're looking to publish and it's new to you, set a realistic pace for yourself. And that doesn't mean you can't do 4 or 5 times a week if you want to, but just be realistic in your goals. And if you can just do once or twice a week even, or even less than that, then, that's fine too.
Yes, and that's true. I think it set yourself a realistic goal and stick with that realistic goal. I think as you say, if you do kind of set something which is too harsh, it will bite you a bit. I did notice that your photography is very good. Where do you get all your pictures from?
So my earlier pictures were obviously just, Google image, and then I would give image credit. Then I started playing around with Canva.com. And started creating some of my own custom graphics. And then more recently, I was approached by someone on LinkedIn who really enjoyed my postings and offered to give me graphic assistance for free. And she's been phenomenal. So I give her my topic ideas, and she formulates a consistent graphic for me.
See, that's another opportunity that wouldn't have come about without your proliferation of content. They've come to you. Does she get a credit every time when you publish it?
Absolutely. I make sure of that. And anytime someone is looking for assistance in her respective industry, she's the first person that I promote. And it's not even because she's helping me and I want to help her. She's just genuinely a good person, and I will always pay it forward to someone if they're lovely. A good person.
Well, Christina, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak to me. I appreciate you've stayed late in the office so you could actually talk to me. And I'm calling from Scotland, and you're
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
It's just amazing that we have this capacity to have these conversations. I am very much in awe of what you've achieved, and I am very, very appreciative of you taking the time out to speak to me today.
I appreciate it too. It was really a pleasure, and I look forward to continuing it.
I'm sure we will meet again on LinkedIn, said he, stumbling with his words. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. I think for anyone who's listening who, wants to not live a boring life, I know that sounds horrible, but if you're tired of mediocrity, or if you're tired of just kind of doing the day-to-day grind, you have to have a strong digital footprint. I mean, we're in the information age, and so I think that it's just important for people to be vulnerable. Don't be afraid of negativity. Embrace it. Those people don't matter anyway in the grand scheme of things. And hit publish. Just do it, you know?